As a service is trying to exploit that, what we're trying to do is just provide the opportunities that didn't exist before.
Superficially, sites like YouTube, with its promise of 5 minutes of badly shot fame, appear to be proof of the web's leveling power. But for many users, the web is less about old revolutionary ideals and more about a new way to work within the system. For people like Master Shorty, who was recently nominated for a MOBO award, it's the perfect promotional tool.
Now, you are promoting yourself, you're marketing yourself.
Yeah.
How has the internet made that possible in a way that you wouldn't have done before?
I think that is what the internet is what made it possible. I use the web a lot, from promoting my music to finding producers to actually make the music. And in terms of promoting and marketing, I think that's the main source of, resource that I use.
Yo, my ADHD was running around the place.
I believe the internet's full of, it's music lovers in general. So it's like a big community online with up-and-coming rappers, singers, musicians, producers. I'm able to reach loads of people at one specific time quickly at the drop of a hat.
Looked at coldly, this user-generated, self-promoted world can seem less a challenge to established industries and more a kind of feeding ground, a way for new voices to be discovered and incorporated.
You can shatter hierarchies, the hierarchies of the music business, for example. But in the end, once you become known, you have to sign up with one of the recording studios, as in American Idol. The old hierarchies are still there. They're just scrambling to adapt themselves to this new situation.
The web does make it easier to produce and to share, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's democratizing creativity. Examined closely again, something more intriguing, more disturbing even, begins to emerge. And it can be seen most clearly in the world of the blog. Once blogging was the preserve of those who couldn't be heard any other way. Now it's gone mainstream. This shift tells us something critical about the cycle of revolution and counter-revolution working through the web today. I'm on my way to meet a key player in the new media. Arianna Huffington likes to think of herself as one of the biggest cheerleaders for the democratizing power of the web.
Oh, I'm a huge optimist about the web. I think the way that it has provided a forum for millions of people who otherwise would have been locked out of the conversation is incredibly significant.
But the reality of the website Arianna launched seems more about taming the web's millions of sprawling voices than embracing its democratic potential. The Huffington Post is what's known as an aggregation site. It collates and filters other people's work from across the web for free. And ironically, as it's become more influential, it increasingly resembles an old-fashioned newspaper.
I feel that we are moving towards a hybrid future where we combine the best of traditional media, accuracy, fairness, and the best of new media, transparency, immediacy, accountability.
But in this hybrid world, instead of everyone having an equal say, increasingly editors are filtering and excluding opinion.
The hybrid future that I'm envisioning is going to include millions of voices, but it's not going to eliminate editors. In fact, editors will be more important than ever.
The web's pioneers hoped it would liberate millions of fresh new voices. Instead, people like Arianna Huffington are the new gatekeepers, re-establishing the old hierarchies.
I think it reflects the fundamental intellectual bankruptcy of the internet that someone like Arianna Huffington should have come to symbolize the supposed revolutionary qualities of it. I mean, she's an interesting woman, but she's about as revolutionary as my dog.
And while the web's promoters constantly talk up its restless, promiscuous, creative energy, the facts suggest this is not always the case. The world of blogging, for example, is going through a crisis. Of the more than 130 million blogs active since 2002, it's estimated over 90% are now dormant. This power shift is no isolated example. It's a consequence of the web's unique design. Its early supporters believed that a space without rules and regulations would be more equal. But it seems to me that as the web has grown, a paradox has emerged, and the opposite is happening. The very lack of regulation means that those with the most resources can shout the loudest and can impose their brands and their authority. To grasp the real distribution of power on the web, imagine cyberspace as space. Seen here for the first time is a mathematically accurate model of web traffic in Britain. This is a galaxy dominated by a handful of mega brands. Each month, we search Google more than 38 million times. 1 in 3 of us now have a Facebook page. eBay gets 21 million visits a month. Amazon, 16 million. The web has 1 search engine, 1 marketplace, 1 bookshop, and 1 social network that matter.
I think you can see it in companies like Google and YouTube, the massive aggregation of new wealth and power, the tiny elite of people from mainly Silicon Valley.
When you think about it, it's odd that there are no competitors to Facebook. There's competition for everything in a capitalist society. The way Honda competes with Toyota, the way Pepsi competes with Coke. And does that fact demonstrate, in fact, that the Internet is a limited place for all of its rhetoric about entrepreneurial and cultural freedom?
You see with the Internet a very pure manifestation of the way which power works. It lends itself to oligarchy, it lends itself to very narrow elites. And the Internet is a perfect reflection of that.
And now, 20 years on, with much of the developing world beginning to come online, the man who invented the web is worried about its future.
The concerns that I have are that there will be some sort of central control. And in some countries, it's the government, and in some countries, it's the companies. And I think we have to be always vigilant about these threats, or the whole web will become too frightening to use.
So does the emergence online of these new power blocks mean the web's leveling days are over? Is the idealistic vision of it as a unique space where we're all equal simply a nostalgic memory? This is the man who had the most ambitious leveling dream of all. My journey has come full circle, returning to Wikipedia. Its creator wanted to unleash the power of the crowd to democratize all of human knowledge. Jimmy Wales is the man behind the world's user-generated information source.
Wikipedia in many ways does break down a lot of hierarchical assumptions that people have. It turns out that it's easier to get quality when you have more people participating, and when you judge the quality of someone's work on its own merits rather than paying too much attention to their credentials.
But as Wikipedia has grown, it's struggled to keep its dream of empowerment alive. It's been forced to toughen up its rules to prevent pages being hijacked. Instead of truth emerging by consensus, increasingly, it has to be policed.
It's funny that we used to be criticized for being too egalitarian, now we're criticized for being too elitist, and somewhere in the middle, we passed the day when everything was fine, and no one noticed.
A whole system has evolved that attempts to reconcile open access to Wikipedia with the need for accuracy and authority. Editors can lock pages. A few thousand administrators can delete them. 12 members of an arbitration committee adjudicate on disputes. And at the top of the tree, there's Jimmy Wales himself.
We're actually more structured like the British system than anything else. That we have this very interesting mix of democracy and aristocracy and checks and balances.
So do you think that it's human nature for elites and hierarchies to emerge?
I don't even like the terms that you're asking the question, because I think when we talk about elites and hierarchies, people are thinking, or they will tend to think in terms of top-down structures, authoritarian type structures, whereas what I see happening is that communities can come together, create norms and standards and institutions for dealing with those things. But it also involves drawing some lines and saying, look, at some point you're not being constructive and you're not really, we don't want you here.
We've seen how the rampant piracy on Napster, the creative freedom offered by blogging and YouTube, and the amateur scholarship on Wikipedia can level the world. But even in these revolutionary web spaces, a counter-revolution has inevitably followed. The web is being colonized by new gatekeepers and new elites. And so the real question for me is whether the web is inherently unequal simply because it mirrors the inequalities and the hierarchies in our world.
Somebody has to be in charge. That's what I was taught in the Army, and I believe it, that there's got to be somebody who is responsible for everything that the system does and fails to do.
Hierarchies will emerge. I mean, it's a rare species that doesn't have a pecking order.
I think the web will really take on the contours of what culture has always been. There'll be hierarchies, there'll be elites. Like all technology, the internet is not a cure for human nature, it's an amplification of human nature, both the good and the bad of it.
I've talked about it being open and free in the sense of freedom and decentralized, but I think it would be very wrong to assume that if you connect a country, it will become equal.
For me, the most important question about the web today is whether its idealistic beginnings have been relegated to history. I don't think so, because I believe the web is more than a simple reflection of our world. Instead, it's endlessly reinventing itself. And by placing so much power in the hands of the people who use it, whenever one part of the web is closed down, colonized, and controlled, the technology opens up new frontiers. It's a space of perpetual innovation. No one can stop it, but we do need to take care of it. This virtual revolution is an extraordinary challenge and responsibility, and an extraordinary opportunity.
全球1/4人口都在用网络，网络是一项革命，号称是人类公平的高峰。它是新疆界，给予所有人类同等的发言权。
And once you publish something, the ability to find it and stop it from spreading is near impossible.
The internet has liberated individuals, it's challenged existing power structures of nation states, and the future is still somewhat open.
10点全记录。天罗地网大革命，由亚历克·洛托斯基博士带大家前进网络的过去、现在和未来。
I think one of the greatest paradoxes of the web is that on the one hand, we applaud it for giving us all a voice and for giving us tremendous power. But on the other hand, this power can be used for good or for ill.
10月14、10月15， 10点全记录，天罗地网大革命。就在公视13频道。捐款赞助公视，公视给你多元观点。
An accident. Woman was playing around in
公式强党影集《谎言终结者》。
Two sisters jumped off the same bridge.
To stay out. Okay? There's no other connections between the third victim and the Ashraf sisters.